on interface design today. Okay. Today we are going to see interface design. When we talk about interface design, let me just increase to 20. Okay. Any data exchange. This is nothing but an interface is nothing but any exchange of data. Okay. Usually from one program to other, or from one module to other, or from one system to other. Two programs can talk. That's also an interface. Two modules can talk. That is also an interface. Two systems, two separate applications, they can talk to each other. That is also an interface. So our core aim today is to go through what is interface and get some sample on the design for the job portal. Within this interface, we divide them into internal interface and external interface. Okay. When you say internal interface, suppose I have a job portal. Within the same application, programs or modules talk to each other. Within the same application, programs or modules talk to each other. This is called internal interface. For example, within the job portal, the data of the applicant is exchanged with the recruiter. So there is some interface. The job posted by the employer is shared with the job applicant. That's an interface. So within the same application, data is exchanged. That is called internal interface. There is something called external interface. Two different applications talk to each other. Okay. For example, if you take a travel booking system, okay, you go to some travel site portal, you book a ticket, but the actual travel site talks to the respective airways and then actually books that ticket in that airways database. I may do the railways reservation from railway site as well as many other sites in India. Whereas the railways department is maintaining its own database, finally that has to be updated. So if I have to go into that place, then I need to talk to the railways programs, update that. Same way airways program, I have to talk. So an agent's application, some program in the agent's, booking agent's application will talk to the actual railways or airlines programs. That is called the external interface. The reason why we call it as external interface is our application is done by us. Their program and modules are done by them. Two different set of programmers own them. We don't own the other stuff, but still we are able to talk to each other. That is called external interface. But both of them, all they do is exchange some data. Today we are going to see what are the set of samples on internal interface and the external interface with respect to the job portal. Is this definition clear to you all? Can you please raise the hands? Great. Now let us go to the next level. Let us take our job portal itself. Now we want to talk a little bit on the internal interface first. The first internal interface, okay. Anyway, let me put this bar right here. I want to have one module, okay. This is module A. This is module B. Either you can run it as a, draw it as a circle or rectangle. Now I'm going to say this is employer. This is the employer module, and I'm going to say this is the applicant module. Okay. They talk to each other. Definitely there is an interface. But when you are talking about interface, you need to tell what is the data flowing from this to this in what direction. Okay. For example, this is the employer module. This is the application module. What goes to and fro? Now I'm going to say from employer module to applicant module. Some data is going. What is that? Can you guess? This one, okay. We can have a text control also, okay. Can someone guess what is the data that goes from employer to applicant? Can you type it and then send it in the chat? Yes. The resume, no, from employer to the applicant, the resume doesn't flow, right? From employer to the applicant, resume doesn't flow, but something from applicant to the employer flows. That is what is the resume, right? Okay. From employer, yes, someone has mentioned as job description, correct. So the job details are positions, right? The job description and other details. Job details flow from here to there. Okay. Let me just see where I can put the text on. Let me say job details. Okay, doesn't add the text over there. I need to add a text over there. Okay. Anyway, I can draw. There is something called a call out. Okay. This is nothing but job. Okay. So job details flow from employer to the applicant. That's one data. Same way from applicant to the employer, what flows? Again, let us have another call out. Let us have a different bubble call out now. Okay. Okay. Probably I can move this over here again. Little bit of word art we are learning. Okay. Now this I'm going to say, this is going to be resume, right? So there are two kinds of data that is being exchanged between employer and applicant. I can always say these two modules talk to each other with these details. But the moment, as I said, the important aspect of design, if you are able to make it visually, it is always better for all the people all over the world to understand. Because in outsourcing industry, it is not the job always getting done in the same place. From some other continent, from some other country, we are getting the work. The English usage may be different, but diagrams, they are very simple to understand by everybody all over the world. So it is better that you make diagrammatic representation of your design. Now, employer sends job details, applicant sends resume. Okay, is this the only thing, right? From employer, there are more details also following, right? This is one set of details that is flowing. Another set of details also flow. Can somebody guess that? Another set of details also flowing. Yep. Someone has mentioned interview schedule. Yes, that is another data. once the employer chooses the resume of the applicant, the employer can schedule the interview and then communicate that interview schedule to the applicant, right? That's also another set of data that goes over here, right? Let me try to put a set of properties on that. I don't know whether it can have a text on it, or I can draw again a call out itself. That will be a better, easier and better way. It takes a lot of time to write a text. Okay, let me have another call out box itself. This is where I see the things like word art rather than word art, Visio kind of tools are much more powerful in terms of drawing the diagrams. All it needs is a double click to add a text. So instead of waiting for a long time to use this, because the purpose of this is not for drawing. The purpose of it is documentation. Okay, sorry. Okay, now let me add a text right there. Okay, just hold on a second. Let me have anything else that I can do it on that to have a text. Okay, let us have a simple call out itself. I'm just moving that call out. This one is interview schedule. Okay, this is one set of data that is exchanged. Then what? Then if you keep on doing this, just watch. Now we have identified 4 more data. Now I need more information to be flowing from one module to the other. Okay, interview schedule is given, but the applicant always has, he can say, I can confirm or I don't want to do, right? Confirmation or cancellation. Anything is possible, right? Now, in this, let me try to have a simple text over here. Okay, from applicant, this goes. Okay, now let me draw a text box over there. Again, it takes a long time, but still, confirm, cancel. That is also part. So the applicant can either confirm or cancel that interview schedule. What else can do? Again, the status of it is not the interview schedule. I can always have status of the interview, whether you are selected or not selected or on hold. Another set of data that flow. Again, status, it is not just one word, selected, not selected. There will be so many other comments that would have been given. There would have been some covering letter that employer may send. The moment I say resume, the resume is not a single data, it is a collective data. Even if we say interview schedule is not that, okay, on this date, at this time, at this venue, you have to meet this person. All these put together is interview schedule. Confirmation or cancellation, whether you are coming or not, and what is the reason, or any other alternates. Okay, I cannot come at 4 o'clock, I can come at 5 o'clock. So you can always say, right? So that is the kind of information that flows back and forth. Now all we are trying to do is, right, now this particular information that the applicant is going to give is, the employer is going to give selection status. Okay, so the applicant, employer is giving selection status. Then again, there will be a confirmation, correct? Again, there will be a confirmation from the applicant that will flow back to the employer. So the moment we draw this diagram, okay, just watch. The moment you draw this particular thing, it is extremely evident what data is exchanged between these two. Okay, Nagaraj, what is the importance of this? The importance is, any programmer, when programmer of this module may be different, this module may be different. Okay, later on we are going to see even in the class design and other stuff also, going slightly into the programming aspect. How are you going to send the interview schedule? Just let us take only this interview schedule and confirmation or cancellation of interview, just this one data exchange. How are you going to send this data? Now I'm going to say for the interview schedule, okay, we are going to have 4 different data, okay. Then date, time, venue, address, maybe the office name and then the address, then contact person, then contact phone, okay, contact email. So all these data needs to be sent by employer to applicant. All these data must be flowing. Then response, how the confirmation or cancellation that should come. Then the response we are expecting as, right, status or say confirmation yes or no, let us say yes no message, then notes, then alternate time suggestion given by the employee, right, applicant basically, I won't say employee, applicant. This data must flow from one program to another, this data must flow from one program to another, but in what format? That is the key. What is the format in which you are going to send this data? Are you going to send the data as a comma separated value? For example, date, you are saying 18th February 2010, then time 15 hours, venue Shreyans complex, some ABC, okay, 15 Anna Salai, Chennai, right? Then contact person is Ram, some 1 2 3 4 5, then Ram at openmentor.net. Is this the format you are going to send? Are you going to send as a comma separated value, or are you going to send via XML, right? XML may look like schedule, then slash schedule, right? Within that, you have to say date slash date. Then you have to say time slash time. So how you are going to send the data? Are you going to send the data as a comma separated list, or a tab separated list, or XML, or there is a new format called JSON, okay, JavaScript object notation, right? JavaScript object notation is, if a JavaScript wants to send the data, it is again nothing but an extension of comma separated thing, but it will say date slash 18 February 2010, comma, time slash 15. This is called name value pair, right? In what format you are going to send? Because if the sending format and the receiving format, one program has to send, another program has to receive. If the sending format and receiving format are not the same, two programs will not talk to each other. This is the fundamental concept. If sending and receiving format are not same, interface will not work. Very basic. How are we communicating with each other? I am connecting to you guys. How am I doing? Through English. I know English format, you know English format. If I talk in English format, you guys can understand. If I do not know English and you do not know English, the interface is broken. You cannot understand what I am saying, right? We two are talking to each other and we are able to understand each other because we people understand the interface called English. Same way, when two programs have to talk to each other, they need to understand extension of this interface is nothing but protocol. You can talk about HTTP protocol, FTP protocol, TCP/IP protocol, right? At the machine level, those protocols will work. At the application level, what is the format? Are you going to send comma separated, tab separated, XML data, JSON data, right? What format you are going to send? That is very, very important. And another thing is, while sending, right? While sending, if sender encodes the data, there are multiple encoding, base 64 encoding, right? Base 64. That means the data will not go in ASCII mode. It will go in, again, it still will go in ASCII mode, but it is not readable, human readable form. Then receiver must decode. If a JSP page sends the data in base 64 encoding, the server must receive it and then decode, then only start using its programming logic. So what is the encoding logic? Over and above, there is something called encryption logic also. That means scramble. So the interface has got lot of intricacies, right? Data can be encrypted also. So the receiver must decrypt it before it starts using in its database or programming logic. So the important aspect of it, though we can draw this diagram, okay? This is the way that I want to send the data and receive the data. For each of this request and response, okay? This is a request, this is a response. This is a request, this is a response. This is a request, this is a response, okay? The application may provide another screen. Interviewer, the applicant can go to a screen, give his ID, then it will show, if he say click check status, then it will display his interview status on multiple employers status, right? Because one applicant might have applied to multiple employers, but he wants to see the status of all the employers in one click. In that case, from the applicant, data has to go to multiple employers, correct? So there are same kind of data going through to multiple employers and similar data coming from multiple employers to the applicant. For each of these request and response, in the interface design, we must say what data, in what order, in what format it goes, what is the response we are getting. So request and response is the interface. Every send, every receive, we must define as an interface. There may be hundreds of interfaces in the program. Internal interfaces will be huge, hundreds of interfaces, because a JSP to servlet, a servlet to a bean, right? Again, back from bean to the servlet, servlet to the JSP, request and response. Unless we figure it out, even if the request and response are, right, changed by 1 byte, if request and response format, okay, changed by 1 bit, your interface will fail. Because the moment 1 bit fails, instead of 1, the bit goes to 0, then there's a problem. Whether we are sending, there is something called the synchronous interface, asynchronous interface, okay? But again, you should not call it as a synchronous interface and asynchronous interface. It's like a synchronous process and asynchronous process. When I say synchronous process, I send a request, okay? Let us write it out. I send a request, server gets the request, it processes the request, then server sends the response, right? Then I receive the response. Till then, I wait. After sending, server is doing all these three. Till then, on my screen, I will get the hourglass. I am waiting. It is waiting for the response of the server. That is called the synchronous. That means I send till I receive, I wait. I don't do any other operation. Asynchronous meaning, okay, you send the request, okay, you will get only an acknowledgement. Okay, in asynchronous request, what you say is server gets the request. Okay, there is one difference. Very simple difference. Server gets the request. Instead of processing, server sends acknowledgement. Okay, I receive acknowledgement. Server doesn't process, it processes its own time. It may process now, it may process after 5 minutes, but it will simply say, hey, give me this request, I am putting it in my queue, I will process it later whenever I get time. After that I will send you a notification. But what I do is, the moment I post that request, I get an acknowledgement saying that server received it. Whether server processed it, it's not there. But only thing is, your request has been received. It's like this. Somebody, you are saying that your application has been received, we will be processing it soon. So at least you are getting an acknowledgement made. So in asynchronous mode, the response is acknowledgement. The final response may come at a later point of time. But interface has to still work. In this case, what is the acknowledgement response format? You need to define. That the interface becomes that. Okay, just the acknowledgement response format. Okay. A set of people have asked about data flow diagrams and then collaboration diagrams, right? All these data flow diagrams, collaboration diagrams, they are mainly to deal with the data exchange interfaces. Very simple, right? Different people call different nomenclature, but in simple terms, as the name suggests, data flow diagram, from one program how the data goes to another place. It's an interface, right? Collaboration, again, collaboration meaning one set of programs or people or modules sharing information with others, right? When you say business collaboration, you are exchanging business with. So here, data is the one that binds, that connects between two programs. In simple terms, the raw term is interface. If you simply define the interface, it is nothing but data exchange. Is this clear to you all? Can you please raise the hands? So for the whole program, already you have drawn functional architecture, correct? Already you have written data. Now you need to know which data moves from what to what. That is the key. Going one step ahead, right? You first identify the blocks or modules. Then you identify data. Now you tell me from which module, which other module receiving data, what is the response coming back. These are all internal interfaces. Most of the time, there will be hundreds of internal interfaces. Every screen is an user interface. From the UI, what are you sending to the server? It needs to be documented. It has to be documented, right? That is the interface design, internal interface design. Now, what is the external interface design? Okay. External interface is an extension of internal interface. That means external interface is nothing but extension of internal interface. You might have seen something called APIs, right? These APIs are application programming interfaces. You might have seen APIs, okay? Application programming interfaces or application program interfaces are nothing but standard ways of communicating, right? For example, let us take a simple example, okay? I am an investor, okay? Or let me say, I am an account holder in bank A, okay? I can go to the ATM of bank A and then withdraw some money, correct? In that case, the ATM has some software. It talks to its own bank's servers, right? I can go to ATM of bank A and get money. That means that the ATM software is also owned by that same bank. It connects to the server, which is also owned by the bank. That server runs a software that is also developed by the same bank. Now, I go to ATM of bank B, right? Once I go there, right, I can still get money from bank A. The moment I insert the card, it will say this is a card of another bank, bank B. Service charges may be applicable. Do you want to proceed? I say yes. In that case, ATM of bank B will first talk to the servers of bank B. Then servers of bank B will talk to servers of bank A, because my account and the balance are in the database of bank A. So first I go to the ATM. That ATM will talk to its own bank servers. Bank B server will talk to the bank A, that is my account bank. Then information will flow back. The moment I do this, there will be a transaction posted. In this case, this might have been developed by software company X. This software might have been developed by software company Y. Still, they are able to talk to each other. Electronic transfer happening between banks. How does it happen? Because there are well-defined interfaces. External interfaces must be very clear, because to bank A, hundreds of other banks may be talking. If we make a single change in one format, then all the other banks must change. It is a very, very difficult process. That is why most of the external interfaces, banks talking to credit card companies, right? Or credit cards to e-commerce like PayPal, shopping cart tools. Same way, banks to banks. Most of the financial softwares, right? There are financial software APIs, okay? These are called Swift, okay? There is something also called FIX. Security, stock exchanges and financial applications, they use a separate standard called Swift and FIX. These are all internationally defined. Because most of our applications, Indian IT industries revenue, more than 50% coming from banking and finance, BFSI sector, banking, finance, security and insurance. All of them talk in a standard set of APIs. One bank asking the account information from another bank. It is a well-defined format. There are already structures created by that. Same way, one healthcare company talks to another. There are different protocols like HIPAA. There is something called HL7, Health Level 7. How, especially in US, UK countries, how a hospital system should talk to another hospital system. How a hospital system should talk to an insurance system. It is all well defined. These are all called standard APIs. In the world, for each industry, okay? If you have seen one HR system to talk to another, do you know there is a way? There is something called HR XML, okay? If you go to HR XML, if you type HR XML in Google, right? hrxml.org, something like that, it is there. How one human resource application should talk to another system, somebody defined the XML interface. If I have to send an information about interview, there is a standard XML interface done. If I have to do something about joining, relieving, project allocation, leave application, for everything they have defined. For each industry, in simple terms, external interface, normally we don't write a whole lot. Still, if you are making all the systems by your hands, then you have to make your own external interface. But for each industry, healthcare, banking, financial, insurance, securities, there are standard APIs. These are all governed by international agencies like IPI, IEEE, a lot of agencies available. Health level 7, HIPAA, there are bodies like ISO, CMM which are talking about processes. For interfaces also, there are many companies, many agencies, they are controlling it. So if you want to make your application to talk to your stock exchange, you must use a standard interface. This is one side. Nowadays, there are a lot of social networking sites, right? For example, Twitter, okay? If you go to Twitter, let me open a browser. If you go to twitter.com, either you log into Twitter through browser and then do something, or you can write a program that can automatically log into Twitter. Through that program, you can send tweets. I can programmatically log into Facebook. There are a lot of APIs already supported. If you go to the documentation in Twitter or Facebook, you can look for Twitter APIs, Facebook APIs, right? API meaning how to talk to the system. All you can do is how another system can talk to your system, that you can define. But you cannot go and then dictate, hey, I want to talk to bank XYZ in the USA. Hello, my dear bank XYZ, you change your application the way I want. You cannot dictate that. You have to abide by what rules they lay. So your site is in your hands. How the other side of the interface should look like, it is not in your hands unless you go through their APIs. Let me first go to google.com. Okay. I don't know how many people have done a search on, right? Yes, someone has asked what is APIs. The S is for plurals. API is the singular form, APIs is the plural form. Application Programming Interface, that's it. Okay. Let me say google.com. If you have done a search on HRXML, okay, or Swift protocol or Fix protocol, you can see tons and tons of sites coming up. All of them will talk about what is the request format, what is the response format, okay, HRXML, right? If you see here, HRXML specification, there is a hr-xml.org, right? So you can look at this, right? All communication with respect to a HR system to exchange data. Same way, if you go for Twitter API, right? If you go to Twitter API documentation, it will take you to this one. Now you can always go to Twitter API documentation right there. It will very clearly say how can I do programmatic interface, how can I do programmatic sending of tweet. Everything can be automatically done, right? Right? Twitter exposes its data via application programming interface, right? Like this, every guy is giving this, but the key is you can tell what is your request format. But if you have to talk to another thing, right? If you have to talk to another program, you cannot tell that program how they should behave. So we need to adapt to that, right? Someone has asked, what is the use of API? Simple. If you want to talk to another program, you need to know what format it understands, correct? That is the key. Someone has asked, how can we find out the name for per API of particular industry? Again, you have to check out. You can say insurance APIs, right? Okay. You can say insurance APIs, healthcare APIs. If you type that, again, that may be a list already maintained in the web. Which industry you want to do, you have to separately search. There are, again, there is no one single API available. There are multiple APIs available. Each country may follow its own API. Okay. For example, securities APIs. Okay. Genesis Securities API. There are multiple guys, right? There are multiple people. Or say if you say securities protocol, you can always use other names, securities protocols, right? That is also possible. Financial transaction protocols, right? Fix, Quix, Auto, lot of, right? There are a lot of protocols already available. Each country may follow different protocols depending upon what customer you are dealing with, right? You need to do that, right? Someone has asked, knowledge of such API is required at what stage? Again, we are all talking about design, right? At the design stage, we need to know all those things, right? If you do not know, if you simply say, hey, connect to that program in the other bank, get the account information, how does the programmer will do? The programmer will have no clue of how to talk to the other bank, right? So at the design stage, we need to definitely know what is the API that we are going to use, right? So design as a crucial part in SDLC, it has to be given in-depth thought, especially on the data side. Okay. If you are very clear in the specification and if you are very clear in the data and what data moves from what module to another module, the next step only is the logic. Okay. For the next 2 days, we are going to talk about logic design, classes, methods, writing pseudocode, that we are going to talk about. But before that, every designer must be having a very good grip on the data and the functional modules of the program. Is that clear? If you do not have a grip on data, or if you do not have a grip on interface, it's going to be very tough to manage. Any doubts for the day? I am open to the doubts. Okay, one person has asked, are there different versions of the APIs? Yes. If you look at HL7, health level 7, okay. If you look at health level 7 protocols in Google, you can see different versions of health level 7 protocols, right? Because 3 years before they might have used some format, more data would have been required by now, so they might have added some data. So how, instead of 15 fields, now I'll be exchanging 18 fields from one program to another. So there are multiple versions. Yes, you need to be aware of that. Someone has asked, is there anything, any API for logistics, vehicle tracking? We need to check that out because I'm not an expert in all the APIs. We have done a lot of work in health level 7 APIs and banking APIs, but vehicle tracking or logistics area, probably. Again, one more thing is, today the API may not be there, but if your company has done a product and that product has become popular, then you become the standard, right? You can always say, this product is a leading product in the industry. 50% of the logistics customers are using this one. So you can force other people also to use. It's only the set of people, how many people are using your APIs, correct? But there should be a board at the top level. There should be some board that governs. Otherwise, suppose a company starts an API and then after 8 years the company collapses. Then who is going to manage? It should be a non-government organization and it should be like a neutral, independent board that governs that. Otherwise, it will not have a longevity. So far, if you look at HTML, HTTP protocol has become a standard, then XML has become a standard, now JSON has become a standard. Generic, if you say generic data interface, exchange, XML, HTML, and then very specific to JSON. Fix is only with respect to financial industries, right? HL7 is with respect to healthcare industry, whereas every industry can use XML or HTML or JSON format irrespective of the industry. Okay. Someone is asking how do we do API testing? That is out of scope of this because we are talking about design. Let us not get digressed from design to testing part. Okay. Any other someone has asked, is there a special software to design the flow of a project? Usually it's a flowchart or either Visio. Most of the times people use Visio. It's a Microsoft product again. That can be used a lot. Okay. Someone has asked, do we follow any design pattern for API? Most of the times we follow the design pattern only for breaking up of the modules and then arranging them. But when it comes to API, what data is needed and what data has to be sent and received, it's up to your programs. Okay. Any other doubts today? Okay. One person has asked, can we get the material for this? These webinars are getting recorded. You can go to Open Mentor portal. If you click on course demos, it will take you a page where there is a link for recorded webinars. It is also been there. So I will be uploading all these recorded webinars sooner or later. Okay, one other person has asked, even if you take mobile, right, this GSM, right, this GSM or GPRS, right, the way a mobile device talks to the tower, correct, the way a mobile device connects to internet, it is in a specific format, right? So GPRS or GSM is one or the other way, some amount of, but they are not coming at the application level. The GSM format or GPRS way of connecting, at an application level we don't do that. They are at the machine level. That means how the device talks to the tower. For example, my computer talks to the internet via the modem, via TCP/IP, right? But that level we normally don't, unless you do systems programming, you have to know that. But when you're doing application level, we will be talking about how our data is getting changed. We may not be going to the depth of GSM or GPRS, right, to that level. Here we are talking about application design and then the interfaces within the application. Someone has asked, other than HL7, are there any other healthcare standards? HIPAA, HIPAA, HIPAA is another healthcare standards. That is also a very good data exchange. Okay, so I think that is the end of the questions that I have received today. So I hope you enjoyed this session. We will continue tomorrow. We will talk about logic design, okay, classes, methods, and other stuff tomorrow. Thank you. Good night.